Algonquin College, Collège La Cité, and Carleton University. I would like to point out that we have another event coming up next Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m., April 29th, and we'll be discussing energy modeling. So check out our LinkedIn page to get registered for that event. And with that, I'd like to once again thank everyone for your time today. And Omar, if you would like to take it away from here.
Thank you, Kirk. I remembered to unmute myself as we were all joking before this meeting. Let's actually get started. We'll start with Algonquin College. Pablo Medina, if you could please introduce yourself and begin your presentation.
Of course. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hello, my name is Pablo Medina. I am a researcher for the Construction Research Center, a faculty for Algonquin College, and an enthusiast in building information modeling. The presentation that I'm going to show you today is about a project that we started in 2018. It's called the Digital College, and it's basically our own idea of how we could bring digitized infrastructure to our campus. So, very brief introduction for those who are not familiar with the college. Algonquin College has 3 different campuses, Perth, Pembroke, and Ottawa. This image represents our campus in Ottawa. Basically, it's composed of over 30 buildings over an extension of 450,000 meters square. We have currently 19,000 full-time students and around 40,000 part-time students in 384 programs. So what this means is that it's a big campus, and as we always, like to think when we're working in smart cities, is it's like a little city. We have our own residences, we have services of all types. We have not just education, but also gyms and schools and little kindergarten. We have a lot of the programs that normal cities have. And that's why it's so relevant for campuses to start thinking on the advantages of digitizing their own institutions. So to start, what is a digital college? I made a little clip that I would like to show you next. This visual kind of brings the idea together so that everyone can start from the same understanding. So the first question that we, I guess, all should think about is why are educational institutions interested in digitizing campus? And for that, I would really like to send a poll to all of you and see which of the options makes more sense for you if you are thinking that this is particularly an education institution. Could you send the poll, Patrick? This will be a quick poll, so maybe another 5 seconds and then we can see the results. All right, can we see the results? There you go. Okay, yeah. This I chose these 3 topics because this is they basically represent the different perspectives on making a campus. The first, for sure, is optimizing physical and human resources. The second is to integrate local infrastructure towards resilience, sustainability, and master planning. And of course, find new services with this digital infrastructure. But there is other, which I see as 8%, but I want to talk a little bit about that other today. So in the case of Algonquin College, it's about experiential learning. And you will wonder, what is experiential learning? Well, basically, Algonquin has the mandate to bring real projects and apply research into our classrooms. With this mandate in my center, the Construction Research Center, we look at basically what's happening in the world that was more advanced. What opportunities do we have that could bring tools, technology, and processes that are very innovative? And that's how we start somehow finding our way to what smart cities are. Our research led us to Biomass, the Swedish government agency, and KTH, Royal Institute of Technology, and their agenda for smart sustainable cities posted in 2015. And in there, it strikes us that basically to be able to produce the type of campus we were looking for, we were looking at cross-sectoral, transdisciplinary, and multi-stakeholder approach. It could not be something that can only be done by a small group. It has to include government, it has to include academy, it has to include a wide variety of industry, and it has to be, in a way, engaging with all the community. So these 4 principles were part of our conception of the digital college. With that idea, we start drafting a strategic plan of how those different groups could look in our own campus. And we knew we had to start with the academic groups. We talked with the different chairs, with the different programs, and we were trying to understand how can we turn a project as ambitious as the digital college into multiple departmental and cross-departmental projects. Then we have to engage with a group of physical resources, not just the marketing and external relationships, but also the director of physical resources, facilities development, and even our teams at planning and sustainability. And even back then, we didn't have enough of a team to conceptualize the whole idea. So we look at the team of applied research. The way applied research works in the college is we have different centers. My center specialized in construction is called the Construction Research Center. But we have other centers that offer different specialities, and we wanted to bring them on board for the project. So we spoke with the Digital College Lab, with the Data Analytics Center, with the Social Innovation Lab, and we're just trying to gain some inertia about how they could use, from their perspective, the digital infrastructure that we're creating. There was something else happening on the way. Siemens and Algonquin College have an agreement called ESCO2, which means that we are putting significant effort in making our campus more sustainable. After talking with all these groups, we still need a philosophy. We do understand that in order to keep it alive, to keep it growing, it has to be, in a way, open for our community. So we believe we're trying to think what kind of philosophy will be around all of our decisions. And we came with this one: technology at the service of communities. What does that mean, and how does this spread all around our campus? Was part of our strategic plan. This diagram represents that. So basically, the center is the Construction Research Center and the Data Analytics Center, which function as a center. And then from there, we have direct communication with the different program coordinators. Multiple programs join. We're hoping that others join in the future. But for now, the green architecture related to sustainability, the BIM lifecycle management, architectural technologies have recently joined. Even our partners from other departments like the School of Technology, Media and Design and Gaming are also joining. So we're just trying to see how we could work with them. And the way this relates is from the center, we communicate with the programs communicate with the faculty. And the faculty basically decides to participate by making space in part of the curricula to engage in continuous exercises that relate to the digital college. And the quality that I find very interesting about this model is that we can engage continuous a large amount of students, like depending on the size of the class, but we can have groups from 35 students to even 200 students working simultaneously or at different times in different projects related to the digital college. So in terms of the steps that you need to take and how they are divided into different groups, we basically compartmentalize them in three. The first is the stage one, which is basically laser scanning and real capture. The second is a process called point cloud to beam, which means making a beam model out of the point cloud data and other files like CADs, PDFs, photography, multiple types of documented records. And then the third stage, which is the one that we're very excited about, but we are still exploring, is what is called integrated digital campus, which goes once we created the digital infrastructure, how it is connected with different applications for different services. On our quest to not limiting our proposal or initiative of the digital campus, we find out the need of having our own server. So we start investigating what kind of resources we needed, and we find a server called the HyperFlex server by Cisco. And this device is very interesting because it also reflects, in a way, not just the needs, but also the philosophy that we were trying to have all around the college. So this basically centralized computing capabilities that we can spread through virtual machines, which basically what it means is you have those resources and you basically allocate them in as virtual computing power for anyone. And these are adaptable. So depending on the need of the project, if it's a project coming from the data analytics center, or if it's a project of modeling coming from BIM lifecycle management, or if it's a project coming for users experience and app development, based on those resources, we can basically distribute or computing resources. And the way we do it in the college, we have let's say a core group in the Construction Resource Center that have multiple tasks, but these are the most important. Basically, we create a map that lays out a path for the different sections of the college. We count how many scans do we need, where they have to be done. Our main goal or objective is to have a continuous mesh of the entire campus so that we are able to geolocate the buildings exactly where they are and how they relate to each other. The second task, we basically use different courses, the BIM program of the surveying class. We create little paths that go through the campus through main corridors and areas that have like an important educational component on it, so that students can learn from practicing in buildings. And then from there, we basically give the resources to different groups, in this case, the BIM program or the architectural technologies class, and they start modeling based on any information we have available. I think it's important to mention that either our buildings are very old and we have different types of resources. We have blueprints from 1969, and we have new CADs that were just taken like in recent years. So at some points, part of the practice is how all this information converge, and to find how there is different records. Sometimes they are contradictory, but that's part of the experience that we want to convey to the students. I would like to show you another visual. This one basically represents the merging of different types of data. And I think it speaks well about the process of what is digitizing infrastructure. So where are we? And what we see here is basically a render of the different buildings we have digitized. So the white blocks just represent buildings that are in our plan, but that have not been touched yet. And the ones that are modeled are in pink. And there are different types of levels of detail for each model based on the information that we have. But the way we structure a plan is that in the moment that the information that we find is insufficient, we can basically report it to physical resources, and they gave us the information that we need. But then we have to somehow use it as an additional layer for future programs, or even if necessary to it's done through our internal crew at the Construction Research Center. This is another video that I want to show you, because I think in terms of the philosophy of the project and why are we digitizing campus, this video represents a lot of what we're looking for. So what we see here is the void buildings that are projected to be modeled in the future. We see the point cloud, it's flickering, it's a ton of information, it's already decimated data, but still heavy. We see the geolocated trees with information that we have. We see the transparency of the building showing the structure and furniture and all the information that we were able to capture. Which brings us to one very interesting question, right? What are the possibilities of this technology? What can we do with it? We have researched, read a lot of options, and I think as a foreseeable future, we see these three options, right? What's going to happen with the campus? Is it about a seamless integration with society? Is it a form of dialogue among biological organisms? This one is interesting because I'm not talking about, digital is obviously not biological, but through the digital media, we capture most of the, let's say, not just the chemistry, but also the behavior of multiple organisms. And based on that, we can speed the process and understand the processes, but in a way, it becomes a way of communicating with other organisms. So it's in a way a translator. And then is it a resource for social and economic growth or control, which is also there, right? It's also possible that it could be used in that way. So what's next? We strive on our philosophy of technology is for the service of communities. And with this in mind, we take the decisions of what we do next. So our current task right now is to keep continuing connecting with other programs and communities in our college, continuing the dialogue about the research needs and how they can be somehow tailored to be incorporated as part of the digital college. A project like this large has a wide variety of options. So we call it a task for collective imagination. How can you use this campus? There are also we need to continue researching about different tools and technologies that can benefit the digital college. And most likely and most importantly is look at our community and see what services can we optimize with this, and also what possibilities and what opportunities it can bring to all of us in the campus. Finally, I would like to talk to you about our app. So this is a proof of concept, something we have been working on. It's an app called the Digital College, and it brings services to our community. The first one that we are looking in here, of course, is 2D. Our idea is to be a 3D. It's to generate, for example, a 3D wayfinder. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the college, maybe not, but the college has grown very organically. It's a lot of buildings that have been connected in many ways to many different, let's say, it's a complex building. So it's definitely welcome to have a way to display not just in 2D, but in 3D, a way to look at your classrooms or the cafeteria or any place you're looking for. This app should detect where you are and basically create a fast path on how to go to a different place. And it should also show you, if you raise your phone basically with an arrow, what directions you have to follow to identify your classroom. Another app that we are very proud of is something we're calling Informed. And this is connected with the Digital College app, and it's basically an app that it brings local news, warning opportunities about job, conference grants, community discussion, chats, groups, etc. And the other app that we are working on is called Digital Services. There are many services in the college that need to be optimized. For example, when you go to register yourself in the register office, it's generally you have to wait for hours. So we're thinking how this app can help us to basically create a ticket, and then you can just be there whenever it's really necessary. This can also show you like the future events and show you if they have a discount or any kind of, if there's a benefit for you in terms of teaching or learning. It also connects with the food services. It can connect with your locker, which lockers are available. And it also connects with different rooms in case you're looking for a quiet place to study. Another app that I was very excited about is called the Light Park. What it is, it basically identifies the best parking for you based on real times and rates. So instead of you reserving the parking lot for a year, you are able to basically book the parking every time you need it. And this basically the parking have a motion detector that let us know if the car is there and if it's not, and what places are available and for how long. And it's always the cheapest way to get, because it will be based on what is the best option for you based on occupancy. And finally, we're thinking on an app called AC Communities. The idea of AC Communities is when you register to the college, you have a profile. The profile generally is your student number, an email, and some other link to services. We want to extend it to gaming. We want you to be able to create your own avatars, but there is also a way to connect with people. We call it Meet Your Own Clan. What it means is that once you create your avatar and you select your things you like to do around the campus, your preferences and music, anything you want to use to describe yourself. And then as you walk in the campus, basically makes a noise every time you are coming close to some of the with similar preferences. And then you can just contact with them on the understanding that you guys like the same thing. So it's an opportunity for people to connect, which we really don't have in this moment. Okay, thank you everyone. This was my presentation about the Digital College. I hope you like it, and I am open for questions now at the end of the panel, whenever you guys think it necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. We might have time for one or two questions. Seeing as I'm keeping an eye on the clock, if you can ask your questions in the chat, I'll pick my favorite one, and I will be very biased. So feel free to try me.
Yeah, there's also a Q&A a question section as well, I think. Are you able to see that?
Oh, I actually do see it. You're right.
Yes.
No open questions. I mean, everywhere in this webinar can see open questions. So as it is, I don't see anything in the chat. No one's jumping for joy, so I guess I scared them off. Good for me. But I'll hand it off to Nico next. Thank you again, Pablo. And at the end of the next two presentations, we'll go for the panel discussion.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Omar. So I go. Okay, is everyone able to see my screen right now? Yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so my name is Nicolás Arellano. I am an architect. I'm instructor also at the BIM Fundamentals program at Algonquin College. And I am with the group of dbNCR. I'm director of research. Also, I'm studying my PhD in architecture at Carleton University. And there I'm studying the impact of programming tools or coding on BIM. I'm also a research team lead at Carleton Immersive Media Studio, or SIMS. And also for the last couple of years, I have been leading the project of the Carleton Digital Campus, which is this one that you can see here. So let's start. This project started on 2013 as an asset information model. And in 2019, I started working on it, and we moved into a prototype of a digital twin. We have been testing different uses that are the 3 uses that I'm going to describe today, which are facility management and operation, real-time visualization and dissemination of complex database, or be able to run simulations with the model, and finally, for the university to support activities such as virtual experiences for students. So let's talk a little bit about this model. First, the campus. The campus is a 62 hectares space in the south of Ottawa, or the center of Ottawa, and it hosts over 35,000 people, if you consider students, faculty, staff, and more than 50 buildings are composing this campus. Also has the particularity of having 5 kilometers of underground tunnels to connect all of the infrastructure on winter. And we have taken all of this physical world and digitalized it into one federated model. I use the term federated model, which is like a system of systems. So basically each building is modeled at its own BIM, and we have put everything together in this thing that we federate. So federate refers to a group of systems and networks operating in a standard, collective, and connected environment. And a BIM federated model is an assembly of distinct discipline models to create a single complete model of the campus. The good thing about this is that this federated model barely contains geometry. So it makes it very light and manageable. So this entire model is less than 10 megs currently, and it contains all of the buildings. So you can get information from the different buildings just looking at this asset. And it is basically constructed by linking all of the different models of the buildings, and they contain their location, the location in the campus, and also the location on the server where we have all of the databases. Okay, and that way we can join everything in a shared coordinate system, which links all of the buildings together. I want to launch this poll. So in which of these uses of the model would you be more interested? So I'm gonna leave that poll for a couple of minutes. Patrick, can you help me with that? Awesome. And then we're just going to see what we have been doing with these 3 uses. Okay. So other thing about, so facility management, most of the people, simulation and gamification. I think this is going to maybe change a little bit after the presentation, because we have interesting things about gaming that we are going to discuss at the end. Okay, so this project has, the interesting thing is that has been modeled almost 100% by Carleton students. So it's all local work. And I say almost because a few years ago, when this project started, some people at the university were accepted about the use of BIM, but in part, thanks to this project, the university understood the potential of owning BIM models of its building. So today it is a requirement for all new developers to provide the as-built models of the new buildings. So thanks to this policy, we have also, like in the last years, acquired the most accurate models of the latest development. So everything else besides the new development that have been integrated in the BIM have been modeled by Carton students and SIMS. And here you can see a list of all of the different elements that we have been modeling with the progress, and this is the way we track the progress here. So we have exterior zones, we have public buildings, residences, etc. And this of course, this project is work in progress, and we are currently moving towards getting like more accuracy in relation to the real campus. We started collecting also a lot of data that we could get from the existing archives or existing databases on the university. The library of Carton has like a lot of information or digital information about the campus. So we started combining everything into this federated model. And in order to do that, we used a visual programming tool that is called Dynamo, because we are working on Revit Autodesk. And Dynamo is a visual programming tool, so it allows you to automate some of these processes. And in this case, we use it to integrate CAD files, Excel databases, and other elements, for example, sketch and molds that were created, things like that, into our models. So that saved us a lot of time into integrating the assets. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, about the assets. So for facility management, that is the first use that I'm going to show. We have been producing visualization of infrastructure, for example, and services such as water, storm, light, gas networking, and all of that has been incorporated this. So in this case that I'm showing here, you have like all of the lighting fixtures on campus, and because this is BIM and the objects are not just geometry, they have attributes and properties to assigned to them. That means that every single element has a link to a database that contains all that information that relates that element to the real object. So a unique code. So it contains, I don't know, the location, the cost, maybe you can add information about the duration of that lighting bulb, whatever, and you can integrate that into the BIM model. Also, the model has the potential to contain the position, size, and description of every tree on campus. We haven't used this as much as we could, but basically landscaping and campus planning can optimize these tools. And maybe a botanist or a forest student can take this model and integrate more data about the planting of our campus. We have also integrated information about energy consumption that the Department of Facility Management and Operation from Carton has provided to us. And here you can see for example, the energy consumption per kilowatt per hour divided in square footage. And that data is displayed based on a standard university metric that we have been systematically studying and displayed in a very graphical and intuitive way in our models and in our plans and schedules, as you can see here. We have been also testing how to integrate real-time databases into BIM, for example, to show the dynamic nature of the campus. Here you can see an example that we did with Dynamo. So this script here is generating a random database of parking availability, for example. In this case, green is free, red is used, reserved is yellow. And you can put all that information into a graphical way, and then run this simulation on this visualization software in the background, and then you can go to your Revit model, which is the authoring tool that we use to produce these models, and there you have your visualization and the plans, the models, the schedule, everything gets updated in real time. So here I'm just showing like a screenshot of what is this script doing to the model. Okay, so there you can see how the dynamics of the university can be reflected in a graphic way in our model. Same with this, we have been testing different methods of tracking building occupancy to make, for operation and facility management, and to make some features on campus more efficiency, more energy efficient. So again, because we don't have the data, we produce this data with a random number generator online, and we were able to take this data online and integrate it in our model. Of course, this is random data, but you can use online databases that you can use for collaboration with other parties and display that information in your model, again, in plans, models, schedules, in real time reading information from URL. Next, we have been using Ladybug Honeybee to do sunlight analysis, for example, the simulation of daylight impact of new developments on existing buildings. And all these simulations also are run using the same assets. On 2020, the project was nominated to the CANBIM Academic Award, and we submitted this 1-minute video to show in all of these applications that I have been talking about. So this was kind of what we submitted. We did this flight through our Twinmotion model that I'm going to show later. Also, I'm going to share in the chat the YouTube links, so if you want to see them later in better quality, you can just check out the YouTube channel that I there. But here we are showing, for example, I don't know, all of the systems like HVAC. So this is a nice way to visualize systems of mechanical equipment. Here I was showing how we integrate the different assets into digital programming tools, and again, the different functions that I just showed you. And so finally, we won this academic award. And I mentioned this just to show that a digital campus is not just an academic research project, but it could also be very valid for the AEC sector. This recognition coming from such a prestigious institution as CANBIM gave us the confidence that this project adds value to the AEC sector. And this is why we truly believe that it is important for academic institutions to pursue the digitalization of their physical environment. Secondly, I want to show the other use, that is that we have been using this model to create embedded virtual experiences on our model. So on 2020, due to COVID, we all know students were not able to physically attend to the campus anymore. So the Faculty of Engineering and Design hired us to create a virtual orientation day for more than 1,000 students per term, something that they normally do on the real campus. So we created these tours that take the students into a 3D60 render of the different faculties, and then to photospheres of some of the key spaces that they wanted to show. So 6 buildings, 42 photospheres, and 60 360 animations. I'm going to show it, but it's going to be a little laggy because of the presentation, but I invite you to look at the link that I shared. So 3 exterior quads, 7 units, and the 7 360 videos. So here, for example, I don't know if this is going to allow me to click, but the students were invited to this link where the hosts were guiding them through. Yeah, so I invite you to look. You can, with your cursor, you can pan around and look at the model from inside of it, and this will take you to some of those 3D60 images. And that way, students that were not able to access the campus were able to get a little bit more familiar with the facilities. And finally, we are currently working on giving an additional level of freedom to the users of the tours or to the students. So we have been testing the campus into game engines such as Unreal Engine. These technologies allow people to freely navigate, interact with the model. And the next step that we are researching right now is to create a massive multiplayer online, so MMO scenario for virtual social interactions. We imagine this platform for networking, creating study groups, meeting with students, etc. And a student can create their avatars, and these avatars can be designed and edited per student to interact with other students online. Here, students and faculty can inhabit a virtual campus with an avatar, interact with the mall and with other students' avatar. This can also serve as a way of recruiting new students and making them part of the campus before ever starting the courses. So they can make friends beforehand and create a social group with other new and existing students. And this, we are imagining this for after COVID, that to be something that the students want to also look and participate with. So I open this question. Can you think about other uses for this model? And you can also please type your answers on the chat. And for example, I use that we have been thinking is maybe future buildings on campus can be dropped into the model, and students and faculty can experience them and look at the spatial qualities of this new construction and in the context prior to construction, and maybe provide feedback. Finally, we are currently working on the creation and enhancement of the digital world and thinking about best practice to turn all this BIM data into game engines. So right now we are putting this software that you see here is Twinmotion, that is really good for visualization, for text or for materials, and we are putting all of this like more closer to reality model into our game environment to be able to make a better experience. Besides this, we are always thinking of new uses of the campus. So for example, we are constantly modeling and integrating new spaces into the federated model to make it more accuracy. And we dream about creating a scalable model that we can later integrate larger part of the city, maybe Ottawa downtown, or maybe then the whole Ottawa, and who knows, maybe one day Ontario or Canada, who knows. But this is kind of the idea of escalating this into like more integration of different models. And we have been also discussing with the other campuses to do like a network of this kind of models to collaborate best practices or to integrate the other assets into this model. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to share today. As I say, all of these videos are posted on that link that I shared, so I invite you to look at them with better resolution, because of course Zoom is not the best to share links, and go to see the tours, and you can pan around and see the university from a different perspective. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if we have time for questions.
Well, we've actually, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I was getting a weird message. That's fantastic, Nico. Thank you for that. We've actually got 3 questions in the question and answer box.
Okay, perfect. Can I leave the video running?
Yeah,
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. What type of database, for example, there's custom database. Well, if I understand this question, the types of database that we have been integrating are any digital database that we can integrate. So, for example, as I was mentioning, we have taken CAD, so computer-aided drafting drawings, and 3D CAD, which is like, I don't know, a SketchUp or Rhinoceros models, into our federated model and turn them into BIM. So add to this geometry, all of the attributes of the particular object that we are modeling. Also databases, so we have taken Excel databases with information. For example, in the case of the lighting fixtures, we have a database that contains all of the information about those lighting fixtures, and then we embed that information with Dynamo that automates the process into each of the elements placed on campus. And finally, so that's pretty much it. So any type of digital asset we have been integrating. Also, we have integrated some point clouds, which is it's a 3D scan of some parts of the campus, and we also integrated the later scan, which is kind of like a more GIS larger scan of the whole area. Okay. I hope that answered your question. Then I have, what is the data architecture? Dynamo only. Also, what is the, so for instance, what application are you using to display your graphical presentation? Yeah, so the authoring tool that we are currently using is Revit from Autodesk. That is kind of like the main BIM authoring tool on the market, and the visual programming tool that we use is Dynamo, that allows you also to program through Python scripts and through these pre-programmed nodes. And with that, we have been creating these pieces of logic to automate some of the process. So yeah, and then for visualization, in this case, we use from Unreal Engine, or for Epic Games, we use Twinmotion, which is like an amazing visualization software that allow us to integrate all of this BIM into this visualization. The compilation between stakeholders for the model. Also, who and how will the updates be maintained? Yeah, right now it's just students, it's just us maintaining this and making sure everything is up to date. And we try to go for apply for grants and try to partner with other departments on the school to be able to keep maintaining this. So it's just like it's a collaborative interdisciplinary effort, and yeah, so far it's been really exciting for everybody. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Nico. That was fantastic. I look forward to the panel discussion after our next presenter, Nicole.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Perfect. Okay, I'll just put, okay, so I was invited to do this presentation today to share with you my professional development leave project. And my presentation will consist of these 5 topics. So firstly, I'm going to present myself. Who am I? My project itself, the deliverables of my project. I will also talk to you also about my fall workload and the potential of integrating 2 campuses of La Cité in a digital campus. And then I have a small conclusion. So firstly, who am I? Well, my name is Nicole Dubois. I'm a teacher and program coordinator at Collège La Cité in the Architectural Technologist program. So La Cité is situated at 801 Aviation Parkway in Ottawa. So we're close to Montfort Hospital. And we're very, how can I say this, a young college. La Cité is going to be celebrating its 30th anniversary soon. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I love to do research. For that reason, I'm part of the CP team, which means in French, le Centre d'Expertise en Prototypage Intelligent, which in English translation would be Intelligent Prototyping Center of Expertise. And I love everything that's 3D. So right now I'm actually at the end of my professional development leave. I started my project in 2020 around mid-August, and I will be finishing at the end of April 2021. I have to add my leave and the subject of my project has nothing to do with the pandemic, but it comes in a time where simulations are an important topic for virtual teaching. So for my second topic, I will present my project itself. So my project is based on pedagogical serious games. So, and all of its names, because depending who you read and how you read, there's different names. So it includes educational games, simulations, virtual reality, edutainment, digital game-based learning, etc., etc. So different names can be utilized. I prefer using pedagogical serious games because as you will see, there's a gaming component, but also there's an academic component. For my project, I will be sharing with you these four parts. So my project itself, and my project is also made of three parts. So we have the survey, then we have new learnings, and then we have building a game. Before I go into details, I have to say that the main topic or the main subject of my project has evolved. So at the beginning, I was very curious into simulations. How do you do simulations? What can you do with it? All in an academic perspective. Then I started reading and I started reading on games and I said, maybe I can incorporate video game mechanics into my project. Then I got curious. So I said to myself, what is being done or, well, basically being used or created in other colleges? And finally, this is what I really wanted to do, were pedagogical serious games. So using a game as a tool in the classroom. The three major part of my project, as I stated before, was surveying new learning and creating a serious game. So even if my professional development leave finishes in a week, I will still continue working on this project. So the first part is a survey. So basically what is being done in programs in community college. So the main question for my survey is in relation to the context of the use or creation of pedagogical serious game in college programs offered in Ontario. So what are the necessary elements to have or to implement in community college in order to foster inter-college collaboration? A bit like the event today where you have different institutions that want to collaborate potentially for a digital campus. This question can be broken down into two specific issues. So given the recommendation that serious games are a source of motivation for the transmission of knowledge, so better understand what's being used in community college. And the second one would be, whoops, something froze. Okay, sorry. And the second subject would be, what are the resources and the training required behind developing like educational or pedagogical serious games? A big challenge that I encountered were the research ethic boards. So you're going to say, why apply to ethic committees? Well, because I'm conducting a research and I need humans to participate in my survey. So in Ontario, we have 24 community colleges. 2 of them are French. One of them is Collège La Cité. The second one is Boréal. And you have 22 English colleges. There's also an alliance that has been put together, which is the expert panel, so multi-site application process, which 22 colleges participate in this alliance. Even if this alliance exists, we still have to submit an application to every ethic committee of every college. This process is long and laborious. To date, I have received approval from the multi-site, approval from my college, of course, and approval from 20 colleges. So I still have about 2 colleges to get their ethic approval. But yesterday, while I was finishing my presentation, another college gave me their approval. So the exercise has been ongoing since September 2020. And hopefully by the end of May, I will finish with my survey and I will understand better what's being or not being done in Ontario colleges, in Community Ontario College. For my new learnings, so new learnings on pedagogical serious games. So to better understand serious games and more precisely pedagogical serious game, I had to do 5 things. So it was logic for me. So the first thing I needed to do was to understand video games. So for that, I played video games. I have to say that my kids were very happy. They were saying, oh, mom's a gamer now. And I also understand better the addictions of video games. Number 2, I needed to understand what makes a game. So I took different courses and I have read and read and read, and I am still reading today on games. 3, I needed to get familiar with game engines. So I am learning Unreal. Number 4, I wanted to make the experience not only a game, but like an immersive game. So I got more familiar with VR headsets. So I don't know if some of you have ever played games on VR headset, but it can get really freaky. Then number 5, finally, I need to link the game concept to education. So I got familiar with skill-based learning. So with all of that, I created a framework to help me develop guidelines for shaping an educational serious game. So I won't go into details of my framework. This is still a bit ongoing. The third part would be start creating a game. And the main topic would be around the 5 principles of a good technical detail. So I have my framework, I have my idea, I have my tools. So it would be Revit and other software, other applications, of course, Unreal. I have VR headsets, so I can transfer in a VR headset, and then I will have to do the testing. So the main idea, like I said, is the 5 principles of a good technical detail. So my game would be, the idea is to help the students, so the architectural technology students, to better understand the 5 principles of a good technical detail. So you have the structure, then you have the framing, then you have the insulation, the vapor and air barrier, and the finishing. We say in our program, so the translation would be you draw as you build, and Revit is very intuitive in that sense. So of course, to a detail, one needs to add performance elements, fire resistant, acoustic, and everything, but the 5 principles still are the ones that you would see here. So you would have Revit, so you're able to draw your different details that you would need. Then you can bring those details into Unreal and add gaming components, which I'm still doing. And eventually I will be bringing it in a VR headset to make it more immersive. But at the same time, a student that would not have a VR headset can still play the game as per se through a computer, through a tablet, or through any other means for virtuality. Also, we'll be able to bring this game into augmented reality also, so that I had the chance to do with some groups of my students to be able to bring their buildings in augmented reality and be able to do a walkthrough in these buildings. Of course, at the end, I have to make a report. So this report will help me share my new knowledge with whoever. So the report will be based on these several levels of expertise. So the reason I'm doing this project also is to share my knowledge with other teachers, other professors, or practitioners that would like to integrate any type of virtual reality, mixed reality, etc., in their teaching as a tool for learning, and to keep the students motivated, and also to keep them immersed in what they're doing. Like, for example, in architecture, sometimes we do visits, and sometimes it's not possible to do visits. And right now with COVID, well, it's like not possible to do visits. So if we could have like these virtual games that students can go visit a steel structure, a concrete structure, a wood structure, well, that could be really helpful to motivate them and to help them learn how to better do some architectural drawings. So there will be different levels right now, potential in my report. And right now I'm at number 6 and number 7, which creation of more complex 3D animated and interactive objects using a game engine, and also immersive integration using virtual reality headset tools. So I'm here. So I went through all the first 5 levels, and now I need to bring it like a little farther. So at the end, I will create like a tool for people to be able to create and to evaluate pedagogical serious games. Now, what will be the deliverable? So what am I looking to produce to be able to share with other people? So I have 4 main components. So there will be my survey. So in what is being used or being created, and maybe be able to do potential collaboration within the different colleges. So the analyst of my survey. Then I will create tools. So how to create pedagogical serious games, the 7 level of expertise, and where a teacher places themselves in these level of expertise. What are the tools they would need? What are the softwares they would need, etc. And a tool to help evaluate a potential pedagogical serious game. Also, I'm working on a serious game. So based on the 5 principles of a good technical detail. And then a database. So some type of database that will include my new learnings, different types of tools, organization, literatures, reference. So anything to help, as I say, a teacher to integrate any type of virtuality within their teaching. So right now, the reason I'm here is because I met Pablo and Nico and Kurt and all that. And it made me think, well, how can La Cité become its own digital campus? So La Cité has a few campuses, but I'm going to talk particularly about 2 campuses. So we would like to start our digital campus. So I have a vision that one day we can have like a sim cité. So within my workload of the fall semester 2021 with my students, so there'll be approximately 2 groups from 2 different levels. So I'm gonna have 2nd year students and 3rd year students. So I'll have about approximately 70 to 80 students. I will be creating 3D models of La Cité's building. So the first course is called Dessin d'exécution acier in French, which is related to steel structure. So La Cité's Orléans campus is a steel structure. The other course, which is called Détails architecturaux, which it's a detailed problem resolution course. So we have 2 buildings on the main campus. So we have Excentricité, which is our new building, and the addition to the sports complex. So those 2 components are made of steel structure. The rest of the main campus, it's all concrete. So just to give you an idea, So we have our Minto campus, which is in Orleans. So it's a smaller building. So we're going to be digitalizing this building and whatever's around it. And for the main campus, so this is the main campus of La Cité, which has like a few buildings. So the white building that you see here would be the newest building of the mall, which is called Excentricité, which is an immersive experience type building that has like super high tech, and we have like 360 screens and we can project a whole bunch of things on there. Right now, of course, it's barely being used because of the pandemic. And we have the addition right here to the sports complex. So since it's a detailed resolution problem course, since we have a steel structure that is connected to a concrete structure, the same here with this addition, it will be perfect for the course with the third year students. So in conclusion, La Cité, we're at the very beginning of our digital campus. So for our Sim Cité, in the fall, we will probably have the Orleans campus and part of the main campus, which will be the Excentricité building and the sports complex. And I'm aiming for winter 2022 to start on the buildings of the main campus, which will be concrete, in another technical detail course that is related to concrete buildings. We are discussing right now at La Cité. I have the full support of my college and the full support of the property management of building sector and my main director. And after this event, we'll be having a meeting to understand the level of detail that La Cité is comfortable in sharing to have collaborations with, let's say, a big digital twin like Nico spoke before. So we're looking into that. So right now in discussion, I'm going to be concentrating with my students on site, structure, and architecture for these different campuses. I'm not integrating mechanical and all that right now, so maybe we can in the future incorporate other programs like civil engineer, mechanical engineering within this SimCity or digital campus. So those students will be able to incorporate the mechanical and all the different details within the digital campus itself. And I hope that all my colleagues of this event, that I'll be able to pick their brains in the future, since they're farther ahead than what I am right now, to be able to put together our digital campus at La Cité. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Nicole. It's, you know, I really like that SimCity name. It really rolls off the tongue. I like that.
That caught the ears also of my college when I spoke to them about SimCity there. So they're very anxious to see what I'm doing.
Just, you know, just don't push them into the pool and take away the ladder, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So those were, thank you, Pablo, Nico, and Nicole for those fantastic presentations. And actually, before I don't want to neglect you, Nicole, are there any questions for Nicole's presentation before we proceed into the panel discussion? You can use either the chat window or the question and answers box.
Like I usually say to my students, if there's no question, it's because I was clear.
Well, it appears you were incredibly clear. It's impressive.
Or nobody understood anything.
No. I really like that presentation deck. Was it Genial? Genial.ly?
Genially.
Genially.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I like that.
That's a very interactive application.
Fantastic. Okay, so we will actually get into the panel discussion portion of our wonderful evening. And obviously, I guess it doesn't need any introduction who Pablo, Nico, and Nicole are. So I'm actually gonna see. I'm looking at my screen. I've got a list of questions that we can start off with. So you've all talked about your initiatives. Nico, you've got a wide range of buildings, and you've got an entire system set up. There were questions about what databases you're using. Right now, you're sticking with Revit. Pablo, you've got your systems set up and your workflows, and Nicole, you're planning on essentially, in a sense, gamifying or a SimCity. So let's go back to the start. So you've all already started capturing data. You've got some sense of how data was captured. Knowing what you know now, knowing the presentations and things like that, how would you go about? What would you feel is the best way to capture data on such a large scale? I'll actually reach out to Pablo first.
How to capture data in large scale? Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting question. The way we plan it, we basically we have to study the building that we're going to scan. Like every building has different geometry, and that represents a challenge on how you use your terrestrial laser scanning. As an example, if it's a simple square, you can just get around it with a certain amount of scans. Well, if you have two kind of strange shapes intersecting each other, you need to plan a better logistic about it, right? So we start by tracing an initial path. We set the milestone of the day. We don't say, we're going to go this far. We say we're going to do as much as we can. And we start basically early morning. We also, as you guys know, the terrestrial laser scanning also takes the photographies, but the photographies are also affected by the light, and the light changes as the day changes. So we also have kind of our optimum time during the day, of course, depending on the seasons. And that's how we go around it. Of course, we basically add our targets wherever we need so that we can be able to stitch the model later on. And we like to work on the weekends. And I will say also, it's particularly challenging to work with an active campus. It's very challenging because, again, you cannot stop students from moving from one place to the other. It's interesting that COVID gave us the opportunity to not have anyone around and just have some freedom on scanning the buildings. But at the same time, we were challenged by not being in the building. So it's kind of like a missed opportunity there, but it's still, it kind of gives you an idea of what will be an ideal, right? It will be an ideal to not have that much people, to set as much exams and to do a kind of close examination of the buildings you're doing. And for a large scale, when we're talking about, let's say, the district model, I think everything is scalable, right? So if you have enough team and enough scanners, you might actually be able to make a better plan than if you don't. So you have to think on your resources and how can you just deploy them the best way possible. But it's a lot of, you have to re-examine it every day as the project goes.
Great. Yeah, you bring up a very good point, Pablo, which is you're in a catch-22 where COVID, so there's no one around, but COVID, you're not allowed to be around either. So there's a whole scheduling aspect of when you take the scans. For example, outdoors, you would have snow issues if you take it in the winter. So those are all excellent points. Thank you for that. And Nico, what do you think?
Yeah, so there is the thing, we have been in the ECO industry, we have been using asset information models of buildings and of built assets basically for many years, 20, 30 years probably. And I think we didn't have the tools yet to start integrating, which is more important about building, which is the community, the people, the dynamics. And I think the technologies right now are finally allowing us to do that, to be able to make the people participate in the buildings, to make these assets be useful for students, for example, in the case of the campuses. So that's, I think, something that is like looking to the future. Some people have been calling it maybe digital twins, or maybe the gamification of building information modeling. So this is what I am more interested in. How can we now integrate, as not as an asset, as an actor, as a important part of the building environment, the people, the communities, and yeah, I don't know if the tools that we're using right now are the perfect tools, but at least we have these game engines that allow us to put avatars of ourselves, to communicate in online platforms with other avatars, and maybe create communities. I don't know. So that's kind of like my maybe could be like a very far-reach thing to think about, but like 30 years ago, when internet was just like the beginning, nobody thought about a website for a university, like a website where you can put like the main information about the university. Right now, it's impossible to have a university without a website. It doesn't make sense. Like, all of the universities should have a good website to communicate their ideas with students, and to have that that flow of information and that feedback. What about if we think that this new a way of understanding the space, or the academic institution, which is a digital model of their facilities, could be maybe the next way of thinking websites? So in maybe 10 years, we won't conceive a university that doesn't have a campus, a digital campus that we can go and inhabit or walk around, you know? I don't know, maybe.
So are you thinking like the next Bitcoin is universities? You're going to have a purely digital university. You're going to be calculating hashes just to get your degree.
Yeah, that's the thing. These amazing technologies can go to extraction of values from people, or it can go to creating communities and enhancing like relation between people. Hopefully, not hopefully, because this is not going to happen just because of like for some like magical reason. It needs to be us, like the actors, that push towards a good use of these tools and models. You know, it's not going to happen. Like, industry not going to go that direction just because of inertia. You know, we need to push, and I think this thing that we are doing right now, discussing about this and pushing it in this direction, helps a little bit to kind of push towards that that more community-centered relation with the digital world.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point where, you know, industry is slow to do things unless, you know, someone's already got a turnkey solution that they can purchase, like an enterprise solution. So really, it falls on you guys, the academics, to do the research, do the development, and then turn around and provide something that industry can use to move forward.
Yeah. And also to the communities, like, and also to students, that they need to be like asking and pushing for this. Like, for example, when we ask, like, what are the uses that you see on this? I want the students or faculty or staff to go and say, hey, no, we want this for this use, you know, we want this for that use. And that is the way we can move towards something more inclusive and integrated.
Yes. So another thing you mentioned, you know, and it goes in line with Nicole's presentation. It's, you know, the game aspect. So the whole gaming industry and everything they've learned, it's, you know, billions of dollars in that industry. They've come up with a lot of knowledge and technology and mathematics and their own research and development. So you talk about gamification. Not only are you gamifying the product, but you're potentially also gamifying the creation of the product.
Mhm.
So, you know, like even my work phone over here, it scans my face. It's got a 3D scanner on it. Google had Project Tango come out. Mobile scanning technologies is becoming more prevalent. You could potentially crowdsource and gamify the actual capture of this information. Nicole, is that something you're considering, or are you more on the front end right now?
Well, like I said, I'm at the very beginning, but since I've been doing this research, I really see a lot of potential. And when I met Pablo and Nico and I saw where they were at, like they're far in advance than what I am, I said, okay, well, we can use these buildings afterwards and as a database and create a sim city and use them as laboratories to help our students learn. So and then we can share. So let's say Nico has a building that has this interesting structure or a problem, and so then I can go maybe borrow that structure, and then my students can go into it, and we can incorporate it like in a game engine and make it like more adventurous through that building. So there's a lot of potential here, and we have to say that there's architecture in everything. So that's the fun part of our domain, is that you need a building to be able to do a certain type of work. So a sim city, like digital twin that Nico was saying, well, right now it's like La Cité Collégiale, of course, but it can go broader and broader and broader. And then it can be like the entire national capital or the entire world eventually. That's in a long way in advance, of course, there. But resource-wise, at La Cité, we have very little resource, but something we have are very performant students. Once they get into Revit, they really like the potential, and then they really want to work with Revit. So that's something positive that we have. And another thing I hopes to have is to be able to take advantage of Nico and Pablo and all of their knowledge up to here. And maybe together we could put together like a working structure so that we can work together. And then we can have like a certain like standard to work with. Because right now, as I understand, everybody's doing their own little thing. But it can be interesting if everybody like conform to the same standard or basic standard. So then we can all incorporate our digital buildings, campuses, or whatnot together to a bigger database. So
That's an excellent point. That was actually Pablo, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, there is something very interesting here that I would like to point out, right? Which is the relationship of digital campus and pedagogy. And we've been thinking about a lot about it and how does it work. So basically, traditionally, we go to drawing, 2D drawing, and then we model, and then we build. Like what we are seeing right now with basically what Nicole is talking about, what is it, right? Modeling and being in a virtual space. What kind of space does it occupy? What kind of learning can you get from that is different from the other traditional models, right? So it is very interesting because at some point, I'm kind of an advocate for diversity in ways of learning. When you draw, you basically, there's something in your mind that just is drawing, but it's also collecting information that goes to your brain and somehow get digested and becomes knowledge. The same happens when you're building something, right? You build something, you're learning materially, like tangible things. So what is virtual space? You're somehow in the middle. It's not yet tangible, but it's still modeling, and you're still building structures and building walls and building components and looking at them from what the real scale they have. So I believe this is a new way. I wouldn't say a new way of drawing, it's not, but it's a new way of learning. And that to me has a potential, like fundamentally incredible potential for education. And perhaps that's why, universities are so driven by this. One, Nicole mentioned it, when the students get the hand of modeling, they want more, they want to learn more. They see how easily it is for them to kind of learn and adapt and kind of, I believe it's somehow this interesting relationship with gaming. There's something about gaming that help us understand and learn things more fluidly than others mediums do. I don't want it to be a replacement of drawing for sure, because I recognize how powerful that is too. But at some point, it is adding into our own some kind of it's perhaps adding a new dimension learning on how we teach, how we learn.
Great. Actually, we've got some questions coming in from the question and answer box. I think the first question, Nicole, is geared towards you. They're asking if the app is going to be free.
I was just wondering which app was the person talking about. By the way, this used to be one of my students, so I was like surprised when I saw a few names that I knew in the list. So I don't know, Manan, what app were you talking about? Were you talking about the serious game of the 5 principle of a good detail? So it was just, if so, well, all depending on what La Cité wants to do. But the thing is, I like to share my knowledge with other people. So for me, I would like it to be free or published for other people. And so we'll see.
Great. Thank you. Next one is there a plan to collaborate in a way that will align all students versus everyone developing differently? Oh, you are now talking about it. I like how they still sent the question. That was good. I'm just going to put a yes there. Could this be a monthly touch point for the brighter community can see the progress because it is not boring? Smiley face. Well, that's what we're currently talking about right now. Nicole, you brought it up where there's that quote, you stand on the shoulders of giants. So we're all working together, and we're standing on the knowledge that the people that came before us built, and we're building it bigger, and we're going further. And actually, we just got a new question that came in. Would larger and larger BIM models, or as Nicole said, a whole city, do you think that linking your BIM models to a GIS would be accurate? Of course, data exchange between GIS BIM should be standardized. So actually that well, kind of connects to my next question, or where I want to actually steer this conversation. So GIS was a geographical information system. I'm assuming I got that acronym right. But it also relates to the information, not just the geometry or the geography. So I'm going to twist this question into that direction, which is, we've talked about capturing the geometry. We've talked about, how, there's potential for gamifying that and getting people to work on it. What about the information related to that geometry? It's not just about, this is a box that represents a transformer. If someone just draws a box, you're not even going to know it's a transformer. Where is that going to come in? Right now, I understand Nicole and Nico, you've mentioned Revit. Pablo, I'm assuming your team is also using Revit. Revit's not the most gamified or user-friendly system. Where do you see the information input coming from?
Is that for anyone in particular?
Speak at once. It's fine. I like the confusion.
Go for it.
Let's start with Pablo.
I deserve that. Can you rephrase the question?
So the information, how are you, well, okay, there's two questions. One is have you thought about how this is going to expand to larger scale and potentially using a system like GIS? And the other one is, how is the information going to get put in there?
Yeah, in our case, we've been trying to work with the GIS program in Algonquin, where they are interested on how the 3D geometry could be put together, but we haven't really done it, quite frankly. The project that we're trying to put together is the wayfinding, but we haven't really done integration with GIS. I believe you have done it, Nico, maybe. Yeah, for sure you did.
for that, for GIS, so what we have been doing at SIMS is we have been working in a larger project that is called Imagining Canada Digital Twin, which is we are tackling different scales towards a digital twin of the entire nation, if that's even possible. Of course, it's called Imagining because it's kind of like a very ambitious idea. But this project, the Cartoon Digital Campus, is kind of like our smallest scale. It's kind of like the neighborhood or like the district scale where we are testing all of this and try to make it scalable so we can like integrate more assets. Going back, Omar, to your question about software, the problem with Revit and with BIM in general is that it's for ACO experts. It requires a lot of training and a lot of money because you need to buy the license and you need to be into this industry to be able to be part of these models. So it's not that available for everybody. And that is when the gaming software or the gaming engine are good for what we have been discussing, because I don't know, somebody told me that like a third of the world population are into gaming. Like that's like millions, billions of people playing games in the world. So that's so games. I'm not a big gamer, but I know that games can really integrate these digital worlds with people and really easily, really like intuitively, and they are designed to be able to be explored by people. So with the authoring tools that we have been talking about, Revit, Dynamo, AutoCAD, all that, we leave a lot of people outside of the equation. But if we go into turning this into a more intuitive or more accessible platform, ideally, I would say, maybe this could be controversial, but ideally open source. Because if the software that we're using are proprietary, we're also, again, at mercy of the software developer. And so open source, intuitive, accessible, it's, I think, in my opinion, the only way of having the community participating in these assets.
Interesting. Nicole, do you have input?
Well, I agree with Nico. I mean, if we want to evolve and innovate, we have to also share. So we have to work together and share this information. And it's also going to help the next generations, let's say students in architecture, engineering, mechanical, or whatnot, to have access to data to be able, for them to be able to understand better what they're doing, and also to be able to use these tools. And also the market itself, or the different companies themselves also, if they have to renovate a certain building, well, if they have access to this data, well, it makes it easier also. So I totally agree with Nico. I mean, it has to be open source.
I have a couple of stories that might relate. One of them, it's a company that approached to the Construction Research Center, basically trying to answer that once we have a city and, you know, it might have tons of data and we might not be able to just use our phones to navigate through it. Maybe we will, but maybe it's just too much data. How do we go around it? And this company came with an idea called Pixel Beam, which I find very interesting, because the idea is how they can decimate the tons of information and just focus on something. And then at some point they can add resolution to that specific object or model or building and decimate everything else. So they were looking at a kind of like idea of the microscope, right? So you have everything under a pixel resolution, and then as you zoom in or as you select, you can add more information. The idea of going through Unity, I think we talk continuously because we see how this could work potentially in the moment that our programs, different programs, not just architects or anyone, start learning how to model in virtual space in whatever software there is, then they can participate by modeling together and adding stuff to the model. And then there can be controls of what you can model and what you cannot. But at some point, it is, at least in our IVL, it must come from community. Community has to be part of it. And even we recognize that we don't really, there's really difficult to capture the potential of human beings in terms of what they can project, right? But at this point, we need to give them the tools so that they can imagine. And our work as at least from the construction industry, we know we can make a big piece of the cake by giving detailed buildings, but then others from any discipline should be able to add also a piece of the cake, right? And it will be through gaming.
This is interesting. I mean, you know, we're coming from construction backgrounds where we're used to using proprietary software, but at the same time, we're talking about game engines, which have, you know, released for people to use. Games themselves have built-in map makers. And when, you know, Nico, you mentioned open source. There's a vibrant community in the game sphere of not only open source software to generate mesh maps and characters and maps, but at the same time, you know, there's systems that have been around for a while that are open source. I think like Blender. I believe Blender is open source. That being said, while it's good for games, it's, you know, it needs to take it needs to meet us halfway, because we use Revit because it's designed for construction. It's designed for the way buildings are built. You know, right angles, measurements, scale, thing like that. When you go to Blender, it's much more artistic. So, do you anticipate with you know greater visibility in the spectrum of people seeing, you know, digital twins being generated, digital twins of campuses, digital twins of entire cities, the potential for this open source game development systems to actually start to wander more towards this sphere? Nico, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I love this subject. Okay, so when internet was also being developed, it could have gone totally to a proprietary kind of system, like closed. But instead, because of the pressure of the community of hackers at this point, it went into an open source platform that we all know that we can all collaborate. Of course, now it's going into some other dark areas, but at least it was possible to make something more collaborative for at least 20, 30 years. And there are industries that are in the same way as you were mentioning, Omar. There are industries that like the computer science industry, some designers that are used to use open source for their work, but for some reason the AC industry are really dependent on proprietary tools, and we love them, and they are really a monopoly right now, so we depend on them. But maybe it doesn't need to be like that. There is a community that is called OSArch, that is the open source architecture community, that is a small and like really like trying to get there, but is developing BIM tools for architecture. Maybe that could be a good starting point. They are actually using Blender, which is like a really important open source authoring tool, and they are developing the first, this called Blender BIM, the first authoring BIM tool for AC or for BIM. So maybe if we participate in this kind of communities, maybe we can move the industry towards something like that. And we don't need to know how to model maybe to participate in this. Like for internet, you don't need to know HTML for using the browsers. You just need to go and use it. So maybe there are some people that are going to be developing the words, and other people are going to be using them and participating on it. So I don't know. I'm just saying it doesn't need to be that proprietary or that close. Maybe.
So that leads me to the next question: how accurate do these models need to be? And is the geometry as important as the information attached to it? Because you know, you could use systems like photogrammetry. I think Microsoft once went and took all the photos from Flickr for a specific city, and they use that to do photogrammetric process on the entire city to generate a 3D model of said city. So would it be feasible to consider the plus or minus, I don't know what, 6 inches possibility of photogrammetry as opposed to, you know, more accurate terrestrial scanning or drone-based scanning systems? Pablo.
Yeah, I actually have a similar reference, and this was from back, I think it came in the Vitruvius book. Back then, they were saying that drawing was an illusion because when you put a stone next to the stone doesn't really measure exactly what you draw, right? It's always larger, it has a little edge, or somehow it's just not right. So the process of drawing is by itself kind of, I wouldn't say a fantasy, but it is not entirely real, right? The role of BIM, it allows us to draw with extreme precision, for sure. But what we draw is still faces the, materials expand, with the different contrast to temperature. So even infrastructure change. I have read documents when the pipes have grown because of the difference of temperature over a certain length. So I will think that, yeah, we definitely have to have a certain, let's say, it's of course connected to the uses. What is this information going to be used for sure. That tells us like what level of precision do we need for whatever we are modeling. But in terms of, let's say, society and community, there's also like kind of a creative possibility there, no? Like, yeah, things doesn't have to be precise to be part of doing some modeling. And I agree with that.
Great. Nico or Nicole, what do you think of the accuracy concerns or not concerns?
Well, for my part, my vision would be to be my game that I want to build is to be able to bring the people, the students, within the detail itself, not only the building, but in the walls, in the roof, in the floors. So in the different the construction details, to see all the different components, and to bring it one step further, the detailing has to be like fairly precise, would be like in the game process, well, what happens if I put the insulation this way rather than this way? What happens if my structure is this way rather than this way? Will my building fall? So, so to be able to make the best choices for the best detail. So it's sort of like a simulation using a game engine and see, well, if I put the vapor barrier on this side rather than that side, what's going to happen? I have water leakage. Why do I have water leakage? So we're sort of like lucky in Canada because like we have like summer, spring, fall. We have rain and snow and wind and hail. So our buildings really go through a lot. So it's important to be able to understand this and be able to live the detail. That's my objective in the long run. So precision for me would be very important.
Interesting. So you're actually bringing physics engines into this.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
wow, that's good luck.
One step at a time. One step.
What about you, Nico? I mean, all the data that your production has gathered, I'm assuming it's terrestrial based, or are there elements of photogrammetry as well?
For like to create the federated model, we started with a LiDAR scan. So basically, it's a laser scan of aerial laser scan of the whole city, and we use that to create, for example, the topography, and also to verify the location and the height of the buildings. And then we started gathering like the different models that we had. At that point, there were like 5 or 6 BIM models that we started to verify based on this larger database. And then we go we try to go as detailed as we can. So we go into the CAD files that the university have, then we go and take scans of some of the parts of the buildings. And in this case, because of the amount of resources, we haven't been able to get that amount of detail, but there is another project that SIMS has been working, is the beam of the Parliament building, which our tolerance is less than an inch. So we try to model everything, and you know how detailed the Parliament of Canada is. It has like all of these like super tiny little like sculpture details. And when I started working at SIMS, I started working on that project, and we were like really doing like 1 centimeter precision. And the point cloud allowed you that. Like the point clouds are millions of points with like really short separation, and we were modeling like every single detail. So it depends what you need. If, for example, if you are going for fabrication, in the case of the Parliament, they maybe wanted to mill some stuff based on our models. So if you want to go for fabrication, or for what Nicole was saying, to understand the structure, you need to go in a very like accurate level of detail. But if you want, for example, another project that also SIM was part of is the Ontario East Economic Development, which is like looking in on like everything from Montreal to like the whole Montreal Toronto corridor, which is like a huge area. In that case, you maybe don't need like all of the little details, but you need to understand like the kind of like the connection between all of these patches of this territory. So the detail really depends on what are you using. Like we always, because I teach BIM at Algonquin, I always tell the students like, don't over model. Like if you're not going to show, for example, the screws of the table, don't model them, because they are going to be like too much data for what you need. So if you are doing like the campus scale, you have to be mindful of what you're going to be using your precious time into modeling, you know, and also not only your time, but if you want to run a model on your computer and it has like every single screw on every table, like right now, currently, unfortunately, we don't have infinite data computers. Maybe in one day we'll have, and we won't have to worry about that. But right now, we have to be economic about the modeling as well, and our time, of course. Like we don't want to spend time doing something that has no meaning. So that's kind of my.
Yeah, so I guess we have, well, you're right if you look at it from the perspective of don't over model, but at the same time, you know, I'm going to throw a wrench into this and say, well, you never know what this is going to be used for. So, you know, that from that point of view, Nicole is, you know, she wants to build the physics into it, because you never know. Yeah. And then we look at Pablo's mention of the pixel beam, and, you know, just like Google Maps, when you zoom out, you get a lower quality map because it would just be unable, you wouldn't be able to read it from that distance. So
yeah. In one project that we were translating the beam of the Library of Parliament into a VR platform, we separated different levels of geometry. So for example, the elements that were closer to the user, because in that game that we were producing, you weren't able to fly and to see like the structure on the ceiling. So those elements very far, we were able to model them in a lower level of detail. But everything that is close to you and that has a lot of detail, we were modeling those into a more detail. So that's the thing. If you are going to put avatars that can fly, maybe you have to worry about every single elements on like the roof, on the floor, everything. But if you are going to be doing a particular area, like be very detailed about those elements that people are going to be seeing, because you don't want people to see gaps or to see something very abstract, when actually what we want to show is something detailed and rich in textures. And then also this software, for example, allow you to put texture maps. So for example, instead of modeling every single, if you have like a tile that has like a lot of little details, you can maybe put a texture map that simulates that detail, instead of going and modeling every single piece of the mosaic, you know? So those kind of strategies are also related to what do you want to use the model for.
Great. Yeah, we're down to the last 7 minutes of this very exciting discussion. I just want to pose, I guess we can talk about this question till the end. And we've been going through it throughout our discussion. And the gist of it is, where do we see this going when what you're working on right now is done? What's the next step? And we've touched on it throughout our discussion. So Nicole, you mentioned you want the students to really be into the model that they create, to understand the physics and the impacts and things like that. So your students will be creating this model and they'll be understanding that. So that'll make them, more well-developed people for industry and whatever they want to do after their time with you. But at the same time, you're going to have this fantastic resource of your SimCité. Where are you going to take that resource?
Oh, good question. Good question. Because my resources, I wanted them to be used as a learning tool. So for me, it's always going to be a learning tool. Of course, if it can be into a bigger project, like Nico was saying, digitalizing like Montreal to Toronto and incorporate it in there with maybe lesser details, well, then good. So that's one thing I've noticed, that while doing this project, my project got really bigger than I anticipated. Maybe because of the pandemic, maybe not because of the pandemic, but whatever Pablo and Nico were doing, they were doing it before the pandemic. So this is something that's been going on for years. So it's like I have this vision, and then my vision got bigger. So for now, I just want to do this little game, but then I want to incorporate the city's building maybe in a bigger project. So there's a lot of possibilities. I can't say exactly where I'll be in 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Pablo, where do you foresee your labors moving you towards?
Mhm. I think there are two areas that we're interested. One of them is for sure continue expanding it, connecting with other programs. The college itself has a lot of programs that could be well integrated. So it's continuing the dialogue and looking for those connections. The other thing that we see very interesting is we have been approached by diverse industry. I'm not going to disclaim the names or anything, but the idea of having a campus is not just having the building, but having the users, right? So, which means that if at some point we have an active community, an engaged community, that means that we will be able to read and capture information from that community, right? Which of course has the problems of, security of information and what you allow and not to share with everyone. But overall, the interesting point here is the college could be a hub for exploring what information we can share and we cannot share. We could be, under certain circumstances, be basically an experimental, play an experimental role, because this will scale up in cities, right? So that same question, it's in our mind, and we think that's where we would like to grow as research-based. And so research going towards that direction, respecting all our philosophy about technology for communities. And from the other side, just to keep making the model available and connect with other programs as much as we can.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Nico, what's your future goal? Where are you going to be in the year 2000?
One thing that I get from Pablo's comment, he said that the college could be a hub. I think it should be, same with the university. We must do this, and if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and here we have the freedom, or maybe the flexibility that we are into, research and academic, and maybe we don't have like the pressure of the market or of the private sector, which is of course is harder to move in a more flexible way. So I think it's our kind of like our obligation, you know, our we must do it. So I hope I can keep working on this project. Now I haven't been myself the one looking into the gaming because it's out of my area of expertise, but I would love to look into that. I think it has like a tremendous potential. I think it is what the project needs. So I'm going to maybe try to this next term that is coming to focus a little bit more into that, like how a game engine works, how can we integrate more of these assets into a game engine, and yeah, hopefully that is where we can move forward, and ideally also finally to get more collaboration from other partners or other actors, and to maybe make this network that we have been talking with these 4 schools happen, you know, and that we can collaborate and share best practices, workflows, all that, and move forward together. And maybe next year, all the 24 colleges that Nicole has been serving are going to join us and move forward like larger. So yeah, that's hopefully also the dbNCR group can help us to like push this agenda forward, you know.
Definitely. I'm almost thinking this is going to be a recurring meeting where we get together and find out what you guys are up to. So that could be very exciting.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, great. I'll hold you to that. So it's now coming up to 1:30, and we'd like to thank everyone who attended and all the panelists, Nicole, Pablo, Nico. We'd also like to thank Patrick Lalonde and Kirk Stockey. Kirk, if you would like to provide the closing address as you did the introductory address, that would be much appreciated. And you're still muted. There we go.
Sorry, just had to find the right button on this one. Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining. That was a really great discussion. Nico, I love your optimism that we can get all 24 colleges involved by next year. Yeah, I think this is a really good place to start in discussing how we can start sharing some of the resources and just what we've learned between each of the schools. We're all working on pretty similar things, so it's really nice to kind of finally get everyone together in the same room and talk about how we can move forward. So thank you to everyone who presented today. Yeah, so it's 1:30, so thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate the support. Once again, we have another event coming up next Thursday, so check out LinkedIn for that. I think there was a link posted in the chat as well. So with that, thank you all very much. Enjoy your weekends.
Thanks.
Everybody, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.